Amara Cole stood in the middle of the grand ballroom, smiling politely as guests laughed, toasted, and clinked glasses around her. It was her family's anniversary party, a grand celebration she had planned and paid for. The chandeliers sparkled above, music played softly, and everyone seemed to be enjoying themselves. Everyone except Amara. Her older brother, Tobias Cole, stood on stage, microphone in hand. At 38, he was confident, loud, and always wanted to remind everyone that he was the eldest child, the one in charge. He started his speech with jokes and compliments about their late father, about family unity, and about success. People clapped and nodded. But then his tone shifted. "And let's not forget my dear sister Amara," he said, smiling that proud, mocking smile she knew too well. "The golden girl of the family. Some say she's a genius investor, but we all know she just got lucky. Lucky because a man once showed her how the business world works." Laughter filled the room. Some people covered their mouths, pretending to laugh softly. Others exchanged looks. Amara's smile froze. Her stomach tightened. Her mother, Evelyn, sitting at the front table, looked down at her wine glass, pretending not to hear. Not one person spoke up. The words hit harder than Tobias could ever imagine. Amara wasn't hurt because he called her lucky. She was hurt because her own family, the people she'd sacrificed for, let it happen. They watched her being humiliated and said nothing. Tobias continued talking, pretending it was all a joke. "But hey, we're proud of her. She's done well for a little sister." More laughter. Amara stood still, her face calm but her eyes cold. Inside, her heart pounded. She wanted to shout, to tell them all the truth, that she had worked for everything she owned, that she had built her empire from nothing, that she had even saved Tobias's company when it was collapsing. But she said nothing. When the speech ended, Tobias raised his glass high. "To family," he said loudly. People cheered and raised their drinks. Amara looked at him one last time. Her lips curved into a small, tight smile. Then she slowly placed her glass on the table, turned around, and walked out of the hall. Guests watched her leave in silence. Some whispered. Tobias smirked, thinking he had won again. But as Amara reached the door, she stopped and said quietly, just loud enough for him to hear, "You'll regret this." Then she walked away, leaving behind the laughter, the music, and a brother who had no idea what storm he had just awakened. Amara and Tobias Cole had grown up in the same house but lived in very different worlds. Their late father, Richard Cole, had built a strong and respected company from the ground up. When Amara and Tobias were younger, they both spent time in his office, watching, learning, and dreaming about the day they would take over. Tobias was the oldest, bold and confident, always eager to impress their father. Amara, quiet but sharp, often sat in the corner with a notebook, writing down ideas no one asked for but that always made sense later. Their father would smile at Tobias and say, "One day you'll run this company." Then he'd pat Amara on the head and add, "And you'll be there to help your brother." Those words stayed with her for years. Even as a child, she knew she wanted more than to just help. When Amara turned 18, she left home to study abroad. While Tobias stayed behind to manage parts of their father's growing company, Amara built her own path. She studied computer science and business, working part-time jobs to support herself. She started a small tech firm right out of college, one that created software for startups and small investors. It grew faster than anyone expected. Within a decade, Amara had built a name for herself in the tech world. She was smart with money, careful with decisions, and quietly built a fortune worth over $400 million. She didn't brag about it. In fact, she used part of that money to help her family, without ever asking for credit. When their father passed away, the family business struggled. Tobias made risky deals, overextended the company's funds, and nearly drove it into debt. It was Amara's silent investment, her own private money, that kept it alive. She bought up shares, paid off debts, and even brought in foreign investors. Tobias didn't know the full truth. He thought luck or timing had saved him. Even after everything she'd done, he still treated her like a little sister who got lucky. He often introduced her to people as "my sister Amara, the one who dabbles in tech." It stung every time, but she smiled through it, keeping peace for their mother's sake. Their mother, Evelyn Cole, was a kind woman but afraid of conflict. She loved both her children deeply, but her fear of family division made her weak when it came to Tobias. Whenever he insulted Amara or dismissed her ideas, Evelyn would sigh and say softly, "He doesn't mean it, dear. He's just proud. Let it go." And Amara did let it go, again and again. Her fiancé, Jordan, a gentle and thoughtful man, tried to comfort her after the recent party incident. "You shouldn't let Tobias get under your skin," he told her. "You know who you are, Amara. You don't need his approval." But it wasn't just about Tobias's words anymore. It was about years of being overlooked, years of hard work credited to someone else. She thought about all the board meetings she was never invited to, all the company gatherings where she was called Tobias's assistant, or his lucky sister. She remembered the day she brought in $1 million investor, and Tobias told everyone it was his idea. Amara's kindness had always been mistaken for weakness. People believed she stayed quiet because she had nothing to say, but she stayed quiet because she believed in peace, in family, in respect. She didn't want to fight her brother or embarrass him. But now, after that night, after hearing him mock her in front of hundreds of guests, she realized peace had come at too high a price. She sat in her office the next morning, staring out at the city skyline. Her phone buzzed with messages, Tobias's jokes from the party still trending on social media. Her mother had called earlier, asking her to forget what happened. Amara felt a deep ache inside. It wasn't just about one insult. It was about a lifetime of being told she wasn't enough unless she stood behind her brother. It was about her own mother's silence. It was about never being seen for who she truly was. Jordan entered her office, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. "You're quiet again," he said softly. She looked at him with tired eyes. "I'm just thinking," she whispered. "About last night?" "About everything," she replied. "I've been quiet for too long." Jordan studied her face, sensing something shifting inside her, a calm before a storm. Amara turned back to the window, her voice low but steady. "He thinks I'm weak. They all do. But they're about to find out what strength really looks like." For the first time in her life, Amara wasn't thinking about forgiveness or family harmony. She was thinking about freedom, and the power that comes when a woman finally decides she's had enough. 2 days later, the atmosphere in the Cole family company was tense. Tobias had called for an urgent board meeting. Everyone was there, board members, family shareholders, and senior managers. Amara arrived quietly, dressed in a simple navy blue suit, her face calm but unreadable. She already had a feeling that Tobias was up to something. When Tobias entered the room, he looked confident, almost proud. He smiled at everyone, then cleared his throat. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," he began. "As you all know, the company has faced some challenges recently. I believe it's time for a little restructuring." A few board members nodded, curious. Amara kept her eyes on him, saying nothing. Tobias continued, pacing slowly in front of the long conference table. "From today, we'll be adjusting our leadership roles. My sister, Amara, will step down from her executive position and become a silent partner." Murmurs filled the room. One man whispered, "Step down?" Another asked, "Why?" Tobias raised his hand, pretending to calm them. "Now don't get me wrong," he said smoothly. "Amara has done well, but lately her behavior has been unstable. I'm sure you all saw her reaction at the family event. Emotional outbursts, walking out on guests. It's not the image we want for our leadership." The room went silent. Everyone looked at Amara, waiting for her to respond. But she didn't. She sat perfectly still, her eyes fixed on her brother, her expression calm. Inside, her heart burned. The same humiliation from the party replayed in her mind, but this time, it came with anger, not sadness. Tobias was using her silence against her, twisting the truth to make her look weak. Tobias smiled, sensing he had control. "It's not personal," he added with a fake grin. "It's just business. We need stability, and I think Amara could use some rest. Don't worry, little sister, your shares are safe for now." The meeting ended with polite applause from a few who didn't know what else to do. Tobias shook hands with the board members, pretending everything was normal. Amara stood up slowly, collected her files, and walked out without a word. Her silence made Tobias uneasy for a moment, but he brushed it off. He thought he had finally put her in her place. That night, Amara sat alone in her home office. The city lights glowed through the large windows, and the quiet hum of her computer filled the room. She looked at her father's photo on the shelf, the man who had built everything, and the family that had broken it. She opened her laptop, logged into her private investment accounts, and began typing. Line by line, she moved her money out of every shared family venture. $400 million, gone from Tobias's reach in less than an hour. She didn't stop there. She called her lawyer and instructed him to cancel her participation in the family trust. She sold her shares in the joint properties, withdrew her capital from joint accounts, and redirected all her assets into her private holding company, the one Tobias didn't even know existed. Her assistant, Clara, who had worked with her for years, watched nervously. "Ma'am," she said softly, "are you sure about this? Once it's done, there's no going back." Amara paused, her fingers still on the keyboard. She looked up at Clara with calm, steady eyes. "They wanted to see my worth," she said quietly. "Now they'll see what I carried." She clicked the final confirmation button. The transfers were complete. Across the city, in the coal headquarters, numbers began to shift. Accounts dropped, investments froze, and by midnight, Tobias's company had lost its financial backbone. Amara closed her laptop and leaned back in her chair. For the first time in years, she felt free. Not angry, not bitter, just free. She knew the storm that was coming, but she was ready. She whispered to herself, "Let him see what happens when the little sister walks away." Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance. It was as if the world itself could sense what was about to begin. The fall of Tobias Cole, and the rise of the woman he had underestimated all his life. Banks were calling. Investors were panicking. The family company's credit lines had been frozen overnight. Tobias woke up to chaos. His phone buzzed nonstop as he tried to make sense of what was happening. "What do you mean the funds are gone?" he shouted into the phone. "Check again." But the answer was always the same. Every account that had Amara's name attached to it was empty. The company's safety net had vanished. By noon, Tobias had already called 3 emergency meetings and yelled at almost everyone in the building. His face was red with anger, his tie loose, his pride crumbling. Finally, he stormed out of the office and drove straight to Amara's company building. He didn't even wait for permission. He burst into her office, slamming the door behind him. "What did you do?" he yelled. "You're trying to destroy us." Amara sat calmly behind her desk, typing something on her computer. When she looked up, her expression was cool and steady. "I didn't destroy anything," she said softly. "I just protected what's mine." Tobias slammed his hand on her desk. "Your money was part of the family trust. You can't just take it away." "I can," Amara replied simply. "And I did. You made it clear 2 days ago that you don't need me in leadership. So now you can lead without my support." He stared at her in disbelief. "You're overreacting." "It was a joke at the party, Amara. A harmless joke." Her calm voice sharpened. "You humiliated me in front of hundreds of people. Then you called me unstable in front of the board. That's not a joke, Tobias. That's disrespect." Before he could respond, their mother, Evelyn, rushed in. Her eyes were red from crying. "Amara, please," she begged. "Don't do this. Family should come first. We can fix this together." Amara looked at her mother sadly. Family should come first? Where was family when he embarrassed me? Where was family when I saved this company and no one gave me credit? You watched him destroy me again and again, and you said nothing. Evelyn's lips trembled. "I just didn't want to see you two fight. You're all I have left." Amara stood up, tears filling her eyes, but her voice remained firm. "You wanted peace, mother. But peace built on silence is just pain with a ribbon around it." Tobias scoffed. "Oh please, stop acting like a victim. You've always had everything handed to you." Amara turned to him slowly. "Everything handed to me?" she repeated. "I built my company from nothing. I used that money to save yours. I paid the debts you created. I carried this family while you took the credit. And you still think I was handed everything." Tobias's face went pale. He hadn't realized how much she knew, or how much she had done behind the scenes. Just then Jordan walked in, trying to calm the situation. "Please, let's not do this here," he said gently. "Your family. There must be another way to settle this." But Tobias wasn't listening. "She's trying to ruin me," he shouted. "You don't know what she's capable of." Amara's voice cut through the noise. "No, Tobias. You don't know what I'm capable of. You thought I was weak because I stayed quiet. But I stayed quiet out of love. Not anymore. Outside, the news had already spread. Reporters camped near the company gates. Headlines were popping up everywhere. Billionaire siblings at war. Pictures from the party, from the board meeting. All over social media. For the first time, Tobias faced humiliation. Board members who once praised him now called, demanding answers. Investors were threatening to pull out. The same people who laughed at his jokes were now whispering behind his back. Evelyn sat on the couch, crying softly. "This family is falling apart," she said. Amara looked at her mother, her voice filled with both love and sadness. "It's been falling apart for years. You just didn't want to see it." Tobias stepped closer, his tone breaking. "You can't do this, Amara. You can't walk away. We're blood." She looked at him one last time. "I'm not walking away, Tobias. I'm setting myself free." Without another word, she picked up her bag and walked out of the room. Tobias followed her, shouting her name, but she didn't look back. Outside, the air was cool. Cameras flashed as she walked to her car, but she didn't stop. Jordan ran after her. "Amara, wait," he said gently. "Are you sure this is what you want?" She opened her car door and gave him a small, tired smile. "It's not what I wanted, Jordan. But it's what I needed." As she drove away, Tobias stood in the doorway of the building, his eyes full of anger and regret. For the first time in his life, he was the one left behind, powerless, exposed and broken. And Amara? She finally felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace, even if it came at a cost. At an emergency family meeting, the atmosphere was tense. Tobias sat at the head of the long table, his face pale and tired. The board members looked restless, whispering among themselves. Everyone knew the company was collapsing. Investors had pulled out, banks were demanding answers, and Tobias's leadership was being questioned. He cleared his throat and began. "We don't have much time. The only solution now is to sell some parts of the company, the software division, the research branch, maybe even the tech patents. That should bring in enough money to cover our losses." The board members nodded slowly, but one of the legal advisors raised a hand. "Sir," he said carefully, "there's a problem. The patents and software rights are not under the company's name." Tobias frowned. "What are you talking about?" "Of course they are." The advisor opened a file. "They were transferred to a holding company 5 years ago, Cole Innovations Limited. The listed owner is Amara Cole." The room went silent. Tobias's heart dropped. "That's impossible," he muttered. "She wouldn't." Before he could finish, the doors opened. Amara walked in, elegant and calm in a white suit. Her heels clicked softly against the floor as all eyes turned toward her. She smiled politely. "I believe you were talking about me." Tobias stood up, furious. "You planned this. You set me up." Amara raised a hand gently. "Please, Tobias, don't embarrass yourself again." She walked to the head of the table and placed a thick folder on the table. "These," she said, opening it, "are the documents showing that I legally own all the company's intellectual property, including the patents, designs, and research. I registered them under my own holding company 5 years ago, when I realized how poorly things were being managed." The board members leaned forward, eyes wide. One of them asked, "So without your approval, nothing can be sold?" Amara nodded. "Correct. And I do not approve." Tobias looked stunned. "You can't do this. You're destroying the company." Amara looked at him with calm eyes. "No, Tobias. You destroyed it the moment you let your pride lead instead of your mind." The boardroom was completely silent. Amara reached into her folder again and pulled out another set of papers. "Here are the financial records from 5 years ago," she said. "You might remember the recession that nearly killed this company. The truth is, it survived only because I invested $40 million of my personal funds into it, quietly, without asking for credit." Gasps filled the room. The board members turned to look at Tobias, whose face had turned bright red. "You told everyone you had saved the company," one board member said coldly. "You lied to us." Tobias tried to speak, but his voice cracked. I didn't know she." Amara cut him off, her voice strong but steady. "You mocked me for what I built. You laughed at me for being emotional. But that emotion built the empire you tried to destroy." Her words echoed in the room. Tobias's hands trembled as he sank back into his chair. He had nothing left to say. His pride, his image, everything he had used to control others gone. Evelyn, their mother, sat quietly in a corner, tears in her eyes. For the first time, she truly saw her daughter's strength and her son's weakness. One of the board members spoke up softly. "Miss Cole, what happens now?" Amara smiled faintly. "Now, I move forward. I've decided to sell my shares in the company and step down completely. I'll be starting something new. A foundation that supports women entrepreneurs. It's called Cole Future Women." The room was silent again, but this time with respect. Even those who had doubted her now looked at her with admiration. Tobias stood slowly, shaking his head. "You can't just walk away. This is our father's legacy." Amara turned to him. "Father built this company on hard work and respect. You built it on ego. His legacy ended the day you forgot what he stood for." Tobias's eyes filled with tears. His voice broke as he whispered, "Amara, please. I didn't mean to lose everything." She looked at him sadly. "You didn't lose everything, Tobias. You just lost control. There's a difference." She picked up her folder, nodded to the board and walked out. No one stopped her. No one spoke. Tobias stood there, broken, as everyone slowly turned their eyes away from him. Outside the building, cameras flashed, and reporters shouted questions. Amara smiled politely but said nothing. She walked straight to her car, her posture tall and unshaken. Inside, her phone buzzed with messages, congratulations, praise, and offers from investors who wanted to work with her new foundation. She looked out the window as the car drove away, the city skyline reflecting in her eyes. For the first time, she felt light. No anger, no regret, just peace. Back in the boardroom, Tobias sat alone, staring at the empty chair where Amara had been. The empire he once ruled was no longer his. Amara had taken back her power. Not through revenge, but through truth. And that truth was something no one could ever take from her again. Evelyn moved in with Amara temporarily after everything fell apart. Tobias's company had finally collapsed, and most of their family's name was now surrounded by scandal and loss. Evelyn couldn't bear the noise and whispers anymore, so she packed her things and came to stay with her daughter. The first few days were quiet. Evelyn often sat by the window, staring into space, her eyes heavy with guilt. She wanted to say something, to apologize, but the words never seemed enough. Amara noticed her mother's sadness, but never brought it up. She treated her with kindness, cooking for her, talking gently, and making her feel welcome. But something had changed. Amara no longer needed her mother's approval. She still loved her deeply, but she had grown beyond needing validation. One evening, Evelyn finally spoke. "I failed you, Amara," she said softly. "I should have defended you. I should have seen what was happening." Amara smiled kindly. "You don't have to explain, Mom. I understand now. You were trying to keep the family together. You thought silence would bring peace." Evelyn wiped her eyes, and it only brought pain. Amara nodded. "Yes. But it's over now. We both survived it." For the first time, Evelyn saw her daughter not as a child, but as a strong, wise woman. Someone who had carried more than anyone realized. A few weeks later, Jordan came to visit. He still loved Amara deeply and admired how she had handled everything with grace and courage. One evening, he took her hand and said, "Amara, I know life has been heavy lately, but I want to walk beside you through whatever comes next. Will you marry me?" Amara looked at him, her heart full of warmth and gratitude. "Jordan," she said gently, "you've been my rock through all this, and I'll always be thankful. But right now, I need peace, not partnership. I need time to heal and rediscover who I am." Jordan nodded, understanding. "I'll wait," he said quietly. In the following weeks, Amara threw herself into her new project, her foundation, Cole Future Women. It was a program created to support women who had been silenced, dismissed, or underestimated, just like she once was. The foundation offered training, funding, and mentorship for young female entrepreneurs. At the opening ceremony, cameras flashed as Amara stepped onto the stage. She wore a bright smile and spoke with calm confidence. "This foundation is for every woman who was told she wasn't enough," she said. "For every voice that was ignored, for every idea that was stolen. We are here to rise together." The audience clapped and cheered. Her speech went viral online, and soon, she became a symbol of strength and empowerment. A few days later, A reporter from a major business magazine interviewed her. "Miss Cole," the reporter asked, "after everything you went through, the public humiliation, the family conflict, and the loss, what motivated you to keep going?" Amara smiled, her eyes glowing with quiet strength. "Being underestimated," she said. "It's the greatest fuel for greatness." Her words spread across social media, quoted and celebrated by thousands of women around the world. That night, as the event ended, Amara stood outside the building, looking up at the stars. Her mother waited nearby, smiling softly. For the first time in a long while, Amara felt free, not because she had won against anyone, but because she had finally found herself. She had turned her pain into purpose, her silence into strength, and her story into hope for others. Amara drove slowly past the now empty family headquarters. The once busy building was silent, its lights dim and doors locked. Memories filled her mind, meetings, arguments, laughter, and pain. Everything that had once defined her family's world was gone. As she turned into the parking lot, she saw Tobias sitting alone on a bench near the entrance. He looked smaller now, his shoulders slumped, his pride gone. The man who once spoke loudly and mocked her in front of everyone was now quiet, humbled, and broken. Amara stopped her car and stepped out. Her heels clicked softly on the pavement as she walked toward him. For a moment, Tobias didn't look up. When he finally did, his eyes were filled with tears. "I never wanted to destroy you," Amara said gently. Her voice was calm, not angry, just honest. "I only wanted to free myself." Tobias swallowed hard. "I'm sorry, Amara," he whispered. His voice cracked. "For everything. For not seeing you. For hurting you." Amara looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded softly. "I know." There was nothing else to say. Forgiveness had already begun, even if things could never be the same. She turned and walked back to her car, the wind brushing against her face. As she drove away, the rising sun broke through the clouds, lighting up the city in warm gold. Later, she stood by the window of her new office, the headquarters of Cole Future Women. She watched the sunlight reflect on the glass towers and smiled. She felt peace, deep, real peace, not from victory or revenge, but from freedom. Sometimes losing everything you were born into is the only way to become everything you were meant to be. Hey besties. Sparkling Heart, thanks so much for watching till the end. Don't forget to like, drop a comment, and hit that subscribe button for more amazing stories. See you in the next one. Bye. Waving hand sparkles.